My favorite part of that is it's deformed for a frog person. They didn't look like your typical frog person.
Yeah, they were a really deformed frog person.
The corduroy and stuff.
They were lumpy in all the wrong ways. Originally,
kingdoms rise and empires crumble, and the knowledge and wisdom of past ages are lost to the foggy ruins of time. But for genuine seekers of truth, one place stands alone on a hill, shining brightly in the darkness. You, dear viewer, have reached the Hidden Citadel.
Hey, welcome to the most exciting episode of the Hidden Citadel you're ever going to hear.
You found us!
Because this one takes place in my neck of the woods where I grew up. Or just down the road from where I grew up.
What's round on the end and high in the middle?
Ohio.
Yes.
As Bugs Bunny would say. How do you make antifreeze? You steal her nighty. Anyway, we're not here to discuss Bugs Bunny today. We're here to discuss the Loveland Frogman. So I grew up in Richmond, Indiana, which is about 40 miles north. Well, actually, I'm from Abington, Indiana, but nobody knows where that is. It's a cornfield on the map.
It's in Canada.
Anyway, yeah, right. And so I grew up about 40 miles north of Loveland, and Loveland is about 25 miles north of Cincinnati. And every Christmas, my grandmother would take us down to Loveland to the Hamilton Mall for Christmas shopping. And I remember anytime I smell Cinnabons in the mall, I immediately think about being a kid and going Christmas shopping at the Hamilton Mall. So Loveland is also got a castle that a World War I veteran built there. It's called the Castle Laroche. And I don't know if there was a time period when it was private property. So if you want to go check it out, you probably ought to check in advance to make sure that, it's able to go see now.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
Well, it's always the same. It was the Litchfield Castle. I couldn't think of the last episode.
Litchfield, yeah.
But that's what's so funny is every time. Now I'm at the front and the back end of this concept that I'm going to talk about here, just really briefly, because whenever there's a castle, there's also the people that just want to say, why can't I go see the castle? Like, because it belongs to somebody. It's private property. Why can't I? I know it's there.
It's a castle.
It's a castle,
go look at
and
it.
it's pretty, and I should have access to it, and I want to go inside it. And but it's somebody's house. So, and I am fully in agreement with protecting the boundary and stopping encroachment and stuff like that. But then you have my wife who's like,
on the other side.
There's a castle. Why can't we just go on that property? Like, because you're trespassing.
Because your wife and my wife have the same idea about that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And they probably they've done it together. They've gone.
But see, they're not from places in the Midwest like we are where you could get shot doing that sort of stuff.
Yes.
They're from Massachusetts, so it's like you can get away with that up there.
I'm sure.
You don't get away with that in the Midwest.
Ooh.
Maybe it's our Germanness. I don't know. It could be that too.
That's right.
Anyway, so at one point in time, the Loveland Castle was open for visitors. When I was a kid, the state owned it, and you could go there and check it out.
Yeah.
Then somewhere in the late 90s, somebody bought it and put up a stay out sign. And I went down there with some friends because we wanted to go see it, and it said stay out, private property. And we're like, well, when did this happen, And so anyway, what I have heard is that since then, it's now public property again, so it might be available for tours.
Yeah.
I don't know, but don't take my word for it. You got to do your own research. But there's the Loveland Castle was a big thing, but the Frogman came out of that river that the castle is sitting on. So we're going to be talking about the Loveland Frogman.
Yeah.
We're going to be talking about a lot of other weird stuff that happened in 1955. And I think this is going to take us possibly all the way back to our favorite topic, the Tower of Babel.
Babel. Yes, that's the story I tell. I stand alone on the tower to God, the Babel.
Babel! Woohoo! Where do we begin? I guess we should begin with the story.
Yeah, the 1955er.
Okay, so, but I want to start with just the weirdness of 1955. In my research on this, I have found in the Ohio River Valley area, there was so much weird activity that happened in 1955, and one of the things is something that I can personally talk about that happened to my family. So my dad and my grandfather both told me this story at different times. One time, they were driving home from a camp meeting, and I think the camp meeting was somewhere in southern Indiana, and probably down by Brownsville is where we had a lot of our camp meetings. And Grandpa was driving back, and of course, Dad said at the time there weren't really any highways. It was all just these back country roads. And Dad said that everybody in the car had fallen asleep except for him and Grandpa, and they were
the drivers.
Yeah,
that's
well,
good.
Dad was only 10 at the time.
Oh, but he's still driving.
Yeah, but yeah, he was still driving.
In Midwest, he started early.
I started at 12, so yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
You were late.
That's another story entirely.
Yeah.
But anyhow, Grandpa was driving. Grandma had kind of nodded off in the front seat, and I think she had two of the girls sitting in the front seat with her, and the rest of the kids were in the back. And Dad was in the middle. And so him and Grandpa were talking, and all of a sudden, a flying saucer came down and landed right on the road in front of them. It didn't really touch the ground, but it hovered there for a minute. And so Grandpa slowed down, and as he got closer, all of a sudden, the flying saucer just shot off into the air and flew away.
Yeah.
And Dad was, I didn't get to call my dad today to ask him exactly how old he was, but I remember him telling me before he was like 9 or 10 years old. Well, if he was 10 years old, if he was 9 or 10, that means he was born in 1945. That would put this right about 1955 when all the other weird stuff that we're going to talk about today happened. So that's a little true story that I heard from two different people that were in the car that day. And my grandpa told it the same way that my dad did. He was like, yeah, it just came down and it looked just like one of those flying saucers on TV, and then it just shot off into the sky, you know? And thankfully they didn't get abducted or anything. Maybe it's because they had so much holiness left over from the camp meeting that the aliens left them alone.
Yeah, it's like chariots of fire around them and stuff. Yeah.
So in 1955, let's get to the Frogman, and we'll talk about other 55 events in a minute. Okay, there is a story where people mix up a lot of the details of the actual encounter on the internet. And so you'll go and you'll hear the story about, like they'll say things like, there was a businessman named Mark Shockey who was out driving along the road and all. Okay, well, that you automatically know it's wrong because Mark Matthews and Ray Shockey were from a 1972 encounter of the Frogman. So there's just a mixture of some of the details. So what I did is I kind of dug back and I found a lot of the original details. Now, the main guy, the guy that first saw it, was a guy named Robert Honeycutt. And he was a short order cook at one of the local restaurants, and he had driven to Cincinnati for something, and he was really late getting back. So it was about 3 a.m. by the time he was getting back from Cincinnati to Loveland. And of course, you got to remember that back in 1955, you don't have the expressway around Cincinnati. You don't have, anything like that. It's just all little tiny backcountry roads. And so even though it's only like 30 miles from Cincinnati or the middle of Cincinnati to Loveland, if this guy was on the south side of Cincinnati, man, it could have taken a good hour and a half, 2 hours for him just to get back. So if he's running late at like 11 or midnight, if he gets finished, maybe he was doing a cooking, a gig or something down in a restaurant. Well, by the time the restaurant closes and you get everything cleaned up, it's going to be 1 or 2 in the morning anyway. So about the time he gets back at 3 in the morning, he's, sees these 3 creatures. He said they were kneeling in prayer on the side of the road. But then when he got up closer, he realized they weren't kneeling. They were actually just short creatures.
Yeah.
And when he looked at them, he said that they had frog-shaped heads and a slit where their mouth was that went all the way across the head.
Man, it's giving me the creeps. Yeah.
Oh, I know, they're creepy. And they had all these weird wrinkles on the front of their head, and it reminded him of those old dolls that they had in the 50s where they had like a corduroy pattern stamped into the back of the head.
Oh, yeah.
And he said that's what it looked like on the front part of their head, and their skin was green and lumpy, and he said they stank of like rotten alfalfa and some
How do you
other
smell them?
almonds. So he pulled up right next to him, and he's in his car, and they're over there. So he parks the car. He said he wasn't afraid. He just got out and he wanted to see. He was like, why are these kids over there on the side of the road playing or praying or whatever they were doing?
Yeah.
And then he realized, oh, wait a minute, those aren't kids, after he got out of the car. And he said that the creatures were staring intently at something on the other side of the road. And they didn't even like pay him any notice until finally, at one point, they finished with whatever they were looking at. They turned to him, and the one guy raised a wand,
a spark wand,
and blue and green sparks came out and went into his hand and kind of formed into like a ball shape. And he said at that point, he was like, I got to go get the cops. So he hopped back in his car and he raced off into Loveland.
Yeah.
And he knew the chief of police. So he went to his house and he's banging on his door. And he's like, the chief's name was Fritz. I don't have his first name, but Chief Fritz. And so he's banging on the door and he's like 3 or 4 in the morning at this point. And the chief's like, what are you doing? And have you been drinking? And he's like, no, I haven't been drinking. And so the chief kind of checked him to make sure that he hadn't been drinking or anything. And so then he gets his uniform on and he says, you go home and I'll go check it out. So he said by the time the chief got there was nobody there.
Yeah.
And they were all gone. And so.
And no sign of them? No, I mean, it's dirt there.
No trace. Yeah, nothing.
No feet.
Well, the thing, no feet prints, nothing like that. And but this guy said that they looked like they were either clothed or they had really baggy skin that kind of looked like clothing.
Yeah.
And they had webbed feet and hands. And I guess it was blue and white sparks that came out of the rod. And then there was a guy later that investigated this from the Ground Observation Corps, which was, I guess, from what I understand, a civilian aspect of the U.S. Air Corps at the time. I don't think the Air Force had been formed yet. And so this was the Army Air Corps, and they had a civilian ground observation that certain people, if you saw anything weird, of course, you got to remember this was at the time when they thought the Russians could be sending spy planes or whatever. So they had these people that their job was to look out for weird activity like this and then report it.
And it's usually those things, invention is the mother of necessity. So chances are it was not formed as much. It may have been formed with a little bit of the engine or the fuel of the overall global concern with the Russians, but chances are there are other things going on that you probably don't really know about that began this, or we need to keep more watch among ourselves.
Exactly.
My thing is, I'm wondering, it's funny because I'm not even as, the creatures themselves, yes. It's where were they looking and what were they looking at? Like, that's really what gets my attention.
I was looking at the map, and what I understand from looking at the map is there's a bridge that is right there at the area.
Mm-hmm.
And my understanding is this guy just came over the bridge. These creatures, it was as if they had come out of the water and were standing on the side of the road, and they were looking across the road into what appeared right now. It's like, I think there are houses over there, but back in the 50s, it must have just been a cornfield or woods or something. And they were looking across the road at something in the woods, and he kind of interrupted their little, meeting that they were having.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know. Whatever it was dark, and that was the one thing he said was it was dark, and it wasn't until he pulled up to where he could see them in his headlights that he realized that they weren't people kneeling and praying on the side of the road. Mm-hmm. And so the reason I think the kneeling and praying thing is kind of important is, I mean, where was my grandpa and grandma coming back from? They were coming back from a camp meeting. And in 1955, Billy Graham had gone all over the Midwest, Indiana, Ohio, and Kentucky, preaching at different revivals. There were all sorts of tent meetings that were happening. So the idea from a guy that maybe he's a short order cook and maybe he's not very religious is, maybe there's some weird religious kooks, some holy rollers out there praying on the side of the road, and maybe somebody got hurt or something. I should pull over and find out what's going on, which would explain why he really had no fear at all when he first rolled up, because it was like, this is just probably normal people out there, doing something, and that is not so completely unusual for the time,
One of the things that when you say 1955, I think back to something we've talked about before with Joe. It was the Joe Rogan observation that a lot of extra worldly or UFO, UAB kinds of stuff. Is UAB? Wait, what do you think? UAP. Those phenomena that increased after the use of nuclear weapons, and that would be 1945. So 10 years. So it's not like right away, but maybe there is
an escalation.
Escalation, and then just general. It's almost like permeating what used to be maybe a surrounding or protecting. And now it's having more access, and so one of the places that could have been affected. It sounds like it's like an Area 51 there. That
it's really just interesting. Well, and the thing is, like, I know that there were, like, Camp Atterbury is not too far from where some of these things happen in Indiana, because there were some sightings of weird stuff in Indiana too, and it's like, there's a couple military bases that are now defunct that were pretty big deals back in the 50s in that area. So it's like, you don't know what really is going on, but so this guy drew a picture, and you can't see the picture, but I'm going to try to bring it up for the people to see it. This was the actual drawing that the guy made, and the guy said that they all had a big lump on their right side that made their arm kind of up in a weird way so that they were a little bit deformed looking, but they all moved in this weird synchronous fashion where when they moved, it was as if they were moving in unison.
Wow.
Even though they were obviously kind of deformed looking. So this is the actual sketch that he made for the police at the time, and or that the police sketch artist made when he described it. So there you go. There's that. I'm going to turn that off though, so that way doesn't screw up the rotation.
My favorite part of that is it's deformed for a frog person. They didn't
Oh
look
yeah,
like your
right.
typical frog person.
Yeah, they were a really deformed frog person.
The corduroy and stuff.
They were lumpy in all the wrong ways.
Yeah.
Originally, they weren't calling them the frogmen. They were calling them the gnomen, Gnoman.
Yeah, the gnome. Yeah.
Yeah, and so that was what people had started calling them, and then somewhere along the line, it got turned into the frogmen.
Yeah, yeah.
So then what happened was there were other things that happened in the area that a lot of people don't talk about. That's kind of the big one, and everybody says, oh yeah, that's what happened in 1955, and then they go on to the 1972 encounter, but there's a whole lot more to 1955 and so here's my question. Would you like to hear about the 1972 encounter, or would you like to stay in 1950? This is a choose your own adventure. Or would you like to stay in 1955 and hear more about the weirdness of that area?
I would say I'm going to choose 55.
All right, we're in 55. So that happened on May the 24th, or around 3 in the morning on the morning of the 25th. On June the 2nd, the Loveland paper reported that on May 24th, 4 flying saucers were sighted by one of those ground observer towers. So the ground observation corps that came out to investigate the Loveland Frog were originally, the reason they were checking it out was because their Loveland Tower observed 4 flying saucers in the area that same night.
Yeah.
Which is pretty crazy. Nobody adds that usually when they're telling the story of the Loveland Frog.
Right.
The other thing is that in July, a couple days later, or a couple months later, early in the morning, there was a guy named Carlos Flanagan that, from what I understand, he was one of the volunteers for the Civil Defense Corps. And so the Civil Defense Corps is kind of connected to this ground observation corps.
Yeah, sounds like a... Yeah.
And he cited 4... Yeah, right. He cited 4 of the frogmen, and this was before the other guy's report had gotten out.
Interesting.
So he didn't know about the other guy's report at all, and one of the things that he noted was they smelled like rotten vegetation, which is exactly what the other guy said. They smelled like rotten alfalfa. Yeah. And he said it was overpowering, and so there were 4 of them. He went to the cops, and by this time the cops had already dismissed Honeycutt's case as a joke, so they just laughed at him, and he got embarrassed and he left. And he kind of got mad about the whole thing, but he said that the frogmen were on the bridge. There were 4 of them, and when he pulled up, he said they were about 3 feet tall, just like the other guy said, and they matched the description completely with the bulge and the wand and all that stuff that the other guy had noticed, except he saw this a couple months later in July. Then there was a third incident, and this one is from, I'm trying to find the name of the couple. It's Ernest and Thelma something. I got it in my notes. While I'm looking at, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, Ernest and Thelma's, I think, just naturally find themselves in the early 50s. Right. Wherever they are in the world, Ernest and Thelma's are regularly together. Just say,
that's it.
I'm Thelma. I need to find an Ernest. I'm Ernest.
I need to find Ernest. That's it. They belong together.
I just feel like there's something we're missing in that time. What'd you say?
Ernest and Thelma Magnon.
Oh, that's a cool name.
I know.
That sounds like something Dungeons and Dragons.
Like I know.
The Magnon.
They should be the innkeeper at one of the.
Ooh, yeah. Can we stay for the night? You can, but it'll cost you 3 extra gold pieces.
That's right. And you leave that thing out. Yeah, it's not the frogman's not allowed in.
No wand for you.
That's right.
The wand of invisibility.
So Ernest and Thelma Magnon. Oh, I cut you off though about the. What were you going to say
I was just
about?
gonna say, I'm just trying to think of like what was other than the the concern about communism. What major war was about to happen or did happen going into that
55 would have been Korea.
Yeah, Korea.
But also, this is the first publication of pulp magazines. So,
Okay.
and the pulp magazines were like all about aliens and everything like that.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I mean, if you go to the grocery store and there's a pulp magazine, it's going to have an alien. And this is shocking to people, you know, back in the day.
Because the stuff in print was most likely, something either real or beneficial. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And people believed it. I mean, I remember in the 70s and early 80s, there were a lot of people that believed all the stuff that was in the Inquirer.
Yeah.
Or the Bat Boy thing and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway, Ernest and Thelma Magnon, one of the strangest related Ohio cases, they had seen this enormous dog-like, or they didn't see it. Their neighbor saw it. Their dog stayed up all night long barking at something, and they kept telling the dog to shut up and go to bed. And then finally the neighbor got up and said, "Your dog woke me up," and there was this massive dog-like creature that was at the edge of the woods out there in back of the house, and it scared me really bad, and that's probably what your dog was barking at. And so they reported it to the cops, and the cops came and they found paw prints and stuff, but they didn't find, the actual creature or anything like that. So this wasn't a frog, but a dog, and dog rhymes with frog. So, there we go.
Well, I just think it's another, it's a kind of, I mean, the theme of the frog people is some sort of distortion of a living thing, of a common living thing. And so the dog could very well be as much, which goes into stuff we've talked about before, so which we'll bring up later.
It's possible.
Yeah.
There is an old legend that people have yet to confirm, I guess, but they claim that the Shawnee Indians, of which I am apparently descended on one side, had this legend of where the heck is the name of it? The hawk, Shawahock. The Shawahock was a water demon that they warned lived in the rivers in that area, and the Shawnee were all over lower Indiana, Ohio, and Kentucky. And so they claim that I mean, there's not a lot of documentation, but they say that there wasn't just one, but there was like a whole race of these river spirits that lived in the lakes and the rivers around there, and they would steal the fish or steal your traps or things like that, or mess your traps up when you were fishing. And so it's possible that this encounter could go all the way back to the 1690s, but the first real big one was in 1955. Now, one of the things that was also happening in 1955 in this same area was there were the Hopkinsville alien encounter in Hopkinsville, Kentucky. There was the Kelly Goblins. There were some flying saucers, which I want to do a whole episode on the Kelly Goblins at one point. If you don't know what they are, that is a fascinating case where a group of people were visiting their relatives or their neighbors or something, and all of a sudden the whole house got attacked by little green goblins, and they were shooting at them, and the police came out and were, I mean, this is a highly investigated incident. So that's one we need to do a whole show on. But all of that stuff was happening. Oh, and then there was some in Indiana. In Evansville, there was like a lizard man kind of a thing. And then there was the one in South Carolina, the skateboard swamp creature. And it's like all of this stuff was happening in this time period all at the same time.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like, well, what in the world was going on I don't know if the skateboard swamp was in 1955, or that might have been in the 60s. But anyway,
what's the closest big body of water to there? Lake Erie
the
or something?
Ohio River.
Okay.
And so the Ohio goes into the Mississippi, and then there are all these tributaries that go all over. So, like the Miami River, which I'm pretty sure, if I remember right, goes all the way up to where I'm from. I think there's a connecting point in Richmond to the Miami River. And then the Miami goes down to the Ohio. On the other side of Indiana, there's I think it's the Tippecanoe River, goes all the way down to the Ohio River. And there are all these tributaries all over Indiana and Ohio that connect.
So there's three things. One is that I'm going to have to say the name of our saint, Dr. Heiser.
Oh, yeah. Well, let's get him going here real quick. There he went.
So Heiser says regarding the actual vehicles of aliens. He said, as far as the saucers or flying things, that space kinds of things. He said many different countries. He said that Germany had something as early as 1930s. He said
that's true.
He goes, show me. Yeah, he goes, all right. Technology, no. Show me a body, and I'll believe. And so these stories are not about as much as the flying vehicles as much as they are. There are these beings. Second thing is, Heiser always talks about when bodies of water are prominent in an area. He says it almost you call them the sea, or you call them chaos, and things come from chaos. The beast in Revelation is going to come out of the sea,
comes out of chaos.
But the third thing I was thinking about, which is really that I've never really thought about before, is where are the fallen ones, the major fallen ones, chained and then going to be released? Where are they chained?
Under the sea,
but they're also
in the Euphrates. But there's also, like in Enoch, he talks about certain beings were chained up under the Euphrates, but there were other ones that literally were chained in the ocean. And I watched a video about Enoch's description of the ocean and how there's things that were written about in Enoch that everybody for the longest time said that's ridiculous. But he described basalt rock that he couldn't have known about. He described these creatures that live at the bottom of the ocean that they only breathe like once every 10,000 or every 1,000 years. And they found out about those now that they exist. And then he talked about the moon and the hollowness of it and stuff that we didn't find out until recently. And so it's like there's stuff in Enoch that a lot of people said, well, the reason they kicked Enoch out was because it had all these ludicrous ideas about them, and they're not ludicrous.
Well, he was very he's very Da Vincian. Like even when he's like describing things, it's almost like he's an artist drawing the detail. Like Leonardo da Vinci did in his books and stuff. That this is like having this epiphany of a future thing in his current time period, which looked like it was like bizarre, but he's actually prophetic.
Wouldn't that be cool if he had like a sketchbook somewhere that
we should write that
is yet to be found? That would be cool.
Let's write that. Let's make the Enoch sketchbook.
You can't have that, people. You can't have it. That's ours.
we take it. Well, what I'm saying about the rivers, but things from where when the Garden of Eden was the
four rivers that came out of it.
Those four rivers, but that's not the only time that things happen. Things seem to happen at those rivers.
Rivers have always been they've always been liminal spaces.
Liminal spaces, but exactly. But we're crossing. We're making dry land here and crossing and going to the Jordan and going to and we're stopping up this.
Yes,
up here.
And the water moved back, and then the Red Sea moved back.
There seems to be a very a prominent location for spiritual interaction, both negative and positive.
Let's jump into this.
Yeah.
No, it could be negative too because.
Well, I mean, in the long term, it's all positive because
Oh,
Roman
yeah,
made
yeah.
28 and then 50-20.
True.
Yeah.
But let's jump into this idea. What else is in the Ohio River Valley that's all over that area?
Buckeyes?
The Serpent Mound,
Oh,
Buckeyes are there. But yeah, but you can't eat them. But the Serpent Mound and all these other mounds that the mound builders built are all over the place there.
Wow.
And now, what does that tell you?
That's what I'm thinking. I think I'm missing something there.
It tells me that whenever an ancient culture built any kind of big structure like that, there was some level of paganism that seemed to be involved with it.
And what comes first? Remember, is it their structures, or was something there that they're reacting to?
Or are they marking something?
Marking something that's already there. Right.
Yes. And I remember L.A. Marzulli talking about the Serpent Mound in Ohio and how somebody was there doing some sort of a working, trying to open up a portal or something. And he said they went there and they felt really like serious spiritual oppression. And he was interviewing a guy that he said that his ministry was to go around and pray that God would close these ancient demonic portals.
Wow.
And he said he went to the Serpent Mound on his own without God directing him to. And he said it was spiritual warfare and he really got his butt kicked. I don't understand. I know this is on Marzulli's channel somewhere. Yeah. You can go probably do a search for the Serpent Mound and find that video.
Yeah.
But it's like, I mean, I think that these places were probably connected to some sort of demonic occult activity in the past. And a lot of people will be like, well, they were just ways to mark the solstice or ways to mark this equinox or something. And it's like, I think there's a whole lot more to it than that, especially when you start looking into their gods and you look at some of the ancient native people had like these winged feathered serpent kind of gods and deities that really match up with the seraphim and stuff like that. And it's like, there's something else going on there that, now I want to gloss over real fast the other two incidences.
In the 55?
This is later. This is 1972.
Okay.
2 police officers saw a frogman and they shot at him. And then because of the ridicule, they basically told everybody it was just an iguana. What's ridiculous about that is no iguana can survive the Ohio winter.
Yeah.
Because iguanas, when it gets lower than 40 degrees, they literally go into like a frozen state and they don't move. Yeah. And a couple of years ago, Florida had a cold snap. You probably remember hearing this in the news where iguanas were falling out of the trees because it got down to 40 degrees in Florida.
Yeah.
And so it's like, there's no way on earth that it was a tailless iguana. And then they said, well, later we found it and we put it in the trunk of the car. I think that guy's lying. He did see some kind of frogman thing and he just didn't want people to think he was crazy. Yeah. So that was the Henderson one that people talk about. And then there was one that was really interesting in 2016 when the Pokémon craze was happening and everybody was playing that, walking around looking for Pokémon.
Yeah.
These people found and took video of a frogman creature out in the Miami River right near where the frogman was. And the video you can see he's got these big glowing eyes and he stands up out of the water. It does kind of look to me like it could have been a hoax. Yeah. But I kind of think that the kid that filmed it probably didn't think it was a hoax because it looks like he freaked out and ran off, afterwards. And so maybe it was somebody playing a hoax on him. But maybe not. I don't know. But I just don't understand how he could have those big Kermit the Frog glowing eyes that he has in the video.
Well, you'd also have to kind of know that it's a common either superstition or a common myth in the area.
Exactly.
And then conform whatever your costume is or whatever you're trying to purport
to what people think.
And I'm not. I mean,
and the thing is, the fact that originally they were called the Gnomon,
Yeah.
and the people described them as these lumpy, weird, frog-headed
Yeah.
kind of creatures. But then when you look at this one, he looks like the mascot that Loveland uses now.
Oh, I
and
see.
It's like, that's not at all the same kind of
yeah.
look. And so that's why a lot of
You get
people
that at
think that
Party
one
City.
might be a hoax. Exactly. Or maybe at the coffee shop in Loveland or
Yeah.
something. I want to talk about monsters around the world, though, because the Loveland Frog is not the only frogman that there is. If you go to Japan,
Oh, the Kappa.
the Japanese have the Kappa.
Yeah.
And the Kappa is an interesting creature. What do you know about the Kappa?
I saw the picture of it because it's really interesting. Doesn't it look as much like the frog?
As it does a turtle, kind of.
Yeah, it looks more like a turtle. It does look like a reptilian amphibian kind of thing.
It has a saucer dip shape on its head that contains magic water. And whenever the water falls out, it loses its power. So they say if you ever want to overcome a Kappa, just bow to it. And in respect, it'll bow back and its water will fall out. And then you can overtake it.
So funny. It's like, how do you get a one-armed monkey out of a tree? You wave.
You wave.
Ah! Yeah.
There are also Scottish water spirits, and Slavic vodnik was a river creature that they all kind of looked like frogs or amphibians.
Yep.
And then the Native Americans all over the country, not just the Shawnee and the Cherokee, but lots of Native American tribes have talked about different river beings that live in the river. And we could even take this into the Lady of the Lake.
Yeah,
what is she doing in the river with a magical sword to give out? Why is there a river spirit woman?
Or any of the sirens? Or any of the...
Or the sirens or the mermaids?
The Scylla Charybdis?
Yes. So it's like there's a lot of creatures that live in the water. And the further back you go, the more powerful and chaotic they get, and it kind of goes along with what Heiser was saying. Because you get back into Tiamat, you get back into Leviathan, you get back into Poseidon, then Poseidon's children, Triton, and Calypso, and Calliope, and all of the legends about the powers that they had over the winds and the waves. And then that's why I think it's kind of powerful that when Jesus shows up, and the disciples are so afraid because they're fishermen who are used to being out on a boat.
You'd think, they've seen it all.
And they're scared to death.
And
they're like, why are you sleeping?
Yeah.
And Jonah also was asleep in the belly of the boat before they woke him up and said there's a terrible storm. Jesus was asleep in the belly of the boat.
I love this. If you are watching this and you're just entertained by the kind of peripheral kind of thinking and the mythology and stuff, that's one thing. But the truth of the matter is, when you had Jesus in the boat during a spiritual event to sleep, that shows the power of that the fearlessness you'd have, that the victory is won, and you don't have to. We're not in that battle because the victory is won, and there's no power greater than him.
Exactly. And what does he do? He gets up and he says, "Be still."
Be still. That's awesome.
He's not sitting there.
Yeah.
He's not sitting there having some great shouting match with the storm. He's not sitting there whipping himself into a frenzy and speaking in tongues and doing backflips and handling serpents or any other kind of crazy stuff. He just gets up and he says, "Be still."
Yeah, he's not.
Yeah, right. No. Well, I think he was speaking in Aramaic, which is definitely a tongue I don't speak. But
we got to learn that one for the wind.
Yeah, there you go. But he says, "Be still," and then it says, and it just calms down.
And the exegesia there of that is that you're thinking that he wasn't speaking. He wasn't just like turning off the fan. That was a spiritual battle. He just bumped out all those things that were attacking their boat. from above, below, everything. They're gone.
Yeah.
And be still. It's like
And-
I'm the creator. I'm in control here. Enough of you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Knock it off.
Knock it
He
off.
was within
love that.
viewing. Yeah, he was within viewing range of Mount Hermon where that rebellion happened.
Yeah.
And so it's like you've got the rebellion at Hermon. You've got some of those that had interbred with women, got
Yep.
chained in the darkness underneath the Euphrates.
Yep.
Some of them were chained in the bottomless pit that's under the sea somewhere, you know, and Enoch talks about that. But you obviously probably still had some of them roaming about there, and they all got together and they're like, hey, he's fragile. He's on a boat. Let's kill him. You know, and so they decided to capsize the boat or whatever, and he just said, you know, no,
it's not happening. I keep, you know, going back to that like just the mystery of the rivers kind of thing. You know, I remember there's a line in one of the Pink Floyd songs. I think Roger Waters says it. He's like, "There's more earth than sea," or so. He says something like that. And it's true. Like, you know, as much as the earth is covered, the actual earth volume
is underneath.
That there's more earth than sea. However, you know, the question would be: are all these rivers connected under? If the springs actually go and somehow feed each other, then it would make sense that if there's one chained here, or if there's spiritual activity in the river here, in the where Tigris, Euphrates, and where they all intersect, could make their way all over the earth.
Well, and then let's talk about this.
Let's talk about this.
When Noah's flood covered the entire earth, to kill off the Nephilim, what was the one area that was left relatively unscathed in this whole flood?
The tops of the mountain? Oh no, underneath.
The waters.
Yeah, the waters.
Deep down in the water.
Yeah.
Things living down there would not have been affected much.
No.
So if there were any kind of Nephilim spirits connected to the water, it would make sense why Marduk is a fish god and why Tiamat is a fish deity or a sea beast, or Leviathan is a sea beast, or you've got the different fish gods. Dagon was another one that was like a fish god.
I just saw that this week. I didn't. I always think of like I always think of the Ark, and it kept knocking Dagon's statue down, which is really funny. Like every time they brought the Ark, and Dagon's head was on the ground.
Down.
Yeah.
Well, and in the Apocrypha, there's the story connected to that one of. I think it's Bel and the Dragon, where they were sacrificing to a lizard, this big, massive lizard that lived in the rocks. And then I think Daniel showed up and killed it and showed this isn't a god, this is just a big lizard. And then they were mad at him. And that is what they say in the Apocrypha precipitated him being thrown into them conspiring to get him thrown into with the lions, because they were mad that he killed their lizard.
Wow. There's a lot of tropes here, spiritual tropes. I mean, for one thing, these are things associated with the depths, and the depths were always where Sheol, Gehenna, even the depths, or even where they're chained, the water depths, that sort of thing, that it makes sense that the abundance of negative or spirits that could maybe cause a competition or rivalry in the the faith for the or Yahweh. You're going, well, there's other things too. It makes a lot of sense that those. The second thing is that there are times in Scripture where you have these like the frog-like things that have possessed people and were exorcised out. Something like
in
a frog.
Revelation.
Something like a frog came out of. Yeah.
Well, you and I both remember Pastor Bob. Yeah. And Pastor Bob told the story about how they were exorcising a demon out of somebody. And you guys got to understand, Pastor Bob was just a regular old Baptist minister. He was not very charismatic.
Yeah.
Yes, he was a very laid back, not wild, charismatic, Bible
No.
thumping kind of a guy.
No.
But they had this case, and the other thing about Pastor Bob is he worked. I don't know if he was had his degree in counseling. I think he did.
He did.
Okay, and he worked with a professional counselor.
Mm-hmm.
So they were like mental health specialists, but there was a case where they knew this person's obviously demon possessed.
Yeah.
And so they were praying for the person, and the person got delivered. And a little girl at the back of the church said she saw 3 frogs hopping up the aisle, and she felt sad for them because they didn't have a home. And then the next thing you know, she's exhibiting the exact same possession symptoms that the other person did. And so they had to pray for her. Yeah. And yeah, me too. And they had to get the frogs out of her. Okay, so this ties in with a series of frog-headed deities that we find in Egypt, and Heket is the head of the frog. She's the frog goddess in Egypt. And what is she the goddess of? She's the goddess of magic.
Magic. Hecate. I always thought it was Hecate, yeah.
It could be.
No, I think it's Hecate.
I think it's pronounced Hecate.
I think it's Hecate. I think you're right. I always just, whenever I see it, I always make it into 3 syllables.
I've seen it spelled 2 ways: Hequuet and Heqet.
Oh, I thought it was.
And I think
Hecate. You know, the one that.
No. That is Hecate. That's the goddess of magic.
It's magic
in Greece.
Yeah.
She's the Greek goddess of magic, who is the Greek form of Heket, the Egyptian goddess of magic.
And the incantation that Dr. Faustus uses in order to control Mephistopheles, he says, with Pluto's blue fire, which is a sea, water, Pluto's blue fire, and Hecate's 3, that no eye may thy body see. That's what he says. So it's like, yeah.
So Hecate of Greece can also be pronounced Hecate. I've heard that both ways.
Oh, okay.
And they literally are the same goddess, but in Greece, she's this beautiful woman.
Yeah.
In Egypt, she's a beautiful woman with the head of a frog.
Right.
And from what I understand, if it's spelled H-E... Yeah, there's got to be.
I don't know.
It's like who was it? Johnny Cash, or the one guy that had the song about marrying the mermaid sister who was the fish in the top and a woman on the bottom or something. Oh, anyway. If it's spelled H-E...
That was Vince Gill.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Vince Gill, yeah.
If it's Hequuet, I believe that's the plural form, and it means it's like her minions or her offspring or whatever. And then if it's Hequet, it's her. And she was the goddess of fertility and childbirth, and she was also the goddess of magic. And she's the one that when the frogs came out of the Nile, all of a sudden the magicians were no longer able to copy what Moses and Aaron were doing.
And that goes back to that awesome thing in I can't remember, it's not in Exodus. I'm trying to think of where it is, where God says, I delivered the people, and I also waged war against the gods of Egypt.
Yes.
Now that was so each of those plagues was God going, all right, you got a god, I'm going to defeat that god. That one, I'm taking them all out. And so the frog one is saying, all right, you got a frog god? Guess what? Watch me control all the frogs. Watch what I do here.
Isn't it interesting that in mythology, when the guys came down from Mount Hermon, God said, okay, you guys can have rule over the world, and I'm going to divide up the world, and each one of you get a territory.
Yep.
But instead what we see is...
distortion, really, of that.
Well, what we see is a ganging up. It's like, well, we see pantheons.
Yeah.
Well, why didn't they spread out and each one take control of his own area? Yeah. Why did they cluster together and that would work as a pantheon?
Well, I mean, that really goes, so, when left unto themselves, it's almost like as they were, so are we. that when we are
Yeah.
not connected, we become distorted. And so we do things, to each has gone his own, like it says in Isaiah 53,
Yes.
to each has gone his own way, which means you're not going the way of the shepherd, going the way of order, you're going toward chaos. In doing so, you're distorting.
And that
what
is
the
what
correct,
the Deep Sea represents, is chaos.
I still, we're gonna have to get to the Babel thing, because I still think it's going back to, it's almost like what the creation of the amphibious is saying. It goes back to like the Göbekli Tepe idea that, all right, we're gonna find a way to defeat it the next time. Okay,
hold that, because I think we need to first talk about frogs that are actually good, and that'd be the Fantastic Flying Frogs.
Yes, indeed.
And that's my band that you can go check out. Mm-hmm. If you love us, you can also check out Greg's band, the Brothers Graham. And we have a lot of t-shirts every day I've been trying to add 2 new designs to our t-shirt store over at redbubble.com. We have lots of books out, and I want to just play something real quick telling you about our merch so that you can go check it out if you want.
Mysteries abound in this world. Who built the Great Pyramid or the Tower of Babel? Did Noah's flood interact with the timeline of the dinosaurs? If you are a fan of paranormal investigations, fringe history, and the downright mysterious, then the Hidden Citadel is the community for you. What is the Hidden Citadel? Every week, theologian Willy and psychologist Greg Kemp dive into biblical mysteries and unexplained phenomena that your Sunday school teacher was too afraid to tackle. We explore if Bigfoot is an interdimensional entity, a fairy, a jinn, or a gray-style extraterrestrial encounter, or perhaps elemental spirits serving the watchers, finishing the job the Nephilim started. From the megalithic ruins of Namedal and Pumapunku to the ancient engineering of Tiwanaku and Göbekli Tepe, we treat these archaeological enigmas as our home base. If you are brave, curious, and have an open mind for esoteric research, welcome to the Citadel. If you want to support our deep dives, check out the links to our exclusive gear below.
If you like that music, that was a Journey to Mars by the Fantastic Flying Frogs. Link is down in the description, along with links to all of our gear. So if you want to support us, that is a really way to do it. You can also support us by liking and subscribing and sharing our videos with people, joining our Facebook group, the Hidden Citadel, and we can keep you updated on our videos. But I want to jump back into this Tower of Babel connection, because you were just about to connect, I think, the idea that the flyer and the brick is meant to be able to withstand a flood or fire destruction. Right. And it's a kind of amphibious thing. And it goes along with the idea of the salamander being a creature that somehow comes out of fire when it's really a water creature.
Absolutely. These are all like it's almost like preventive, defensive. It's almost like a counter. Oh yeah, you dispersed, we'll put around. You bring a flood, we'll try to anticipate how you're going to destroy us and prevent that. And so it's almost like the amphibious thing is very intentional. I think it makes a lot of sense, given that everything was wiped out by a flood. It makes kind of sense that you would see something that's an attempt to thwart the next one. Because
let me throw this out
at you. That's the Göbekli Tepe idea, that it was meant to thwart what was the coming judgment.
What about the androgyny of Baphomet?
Yeah.
And how now we've got another amphibious, in a way, kind of a characterization of this.
Oh yeah.
And so it's like there's definitely a demonic entity connected in that regard as well. So it's like I just feel like this whole, and the fact is, like, I just built a pond in my backyard, so I'm trying to make a nice little frog pond for the frogs and the pollinators and all that stuff.
Yeah.
If you are like me and you love frogs, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're a bad person or anything like that.
No.
It's like frogs were glorious little creatures that God made.
Yeah.
But like anything, symbology can be twisted to represent darkness, but it can also be representative of light. So like the whole fully rely on God thing that you can get the little frog pins, or used to when Christian bookstores were around. You could get those little frog pins and give away to people. It's like everything, every symbol, it depends on who's using it. It can be good or bad. The upside down cross was a Christian symbol for the longest time because it represented St. Peter and the way he was crucified. And then the Satanists kind of took it. And really what's funny is up until Black Sabbath used it, it had been pretty much a Christian symbol. And even they knew that it was a Christian symbol when they were using it, you know? And so it's...
That whole thing, I didn't really think about that, but one of the arguments for the different kinds of androgynies and stuff is the frog. Well, there's the frog that's both male and female, and that sort of thing. When there's the debates about the different kind of gender interactions, that sort of thing. It's the first thing they go to. But it's really, I was thinking about when you said the way that the being, the entities themselves, whether it's a wolf or an eagle or whatever it is, or a symbol, by themselves, they're adiaphorous. They don't have any meaning. When a meaning is imposed on them, that's when that the trouble begins. The distortion happens.
Exactly.
But I'm thinking, when Jesus said a house divided against itself cannot stand, I'm thinking, you have frogs. What do frogs eat? Beelzebub.
Yeah, right.
They eat flies.
They sure do.
He's the Lord of the flies. Or is that Mephistopheles? No, it is Beelzebub.
No, that's Beelzebub.
So it's like the frog can't be that bad because it's taking out Beelzebub.
Right. He's taking out Beelzebub. So really, what is a Loveland Frog pedal going to do, Josh Scott?
All right. I was thinking about this one. So
all right.
Here's what I think. I don't think it's the Frogman part, although it'd be kind of cool. Maybe call it the Frogman Spark Wand. And what I'm thinking is, because there's a spark boost pedal, but it doesn't shimmer. I almost feel like, first of all, it has to have blue and white lights on it, just when you click it on. But I think
they have to be sparkly LEDs, not just they don't just turn on; they have to glitter.
Yeah, you see it from the back row of the club. You see that, like, that's cool. But I think what happens, and a frog jumps, so it's got a boost. And I think what you're boosting in a way that you're boosting shimmer. You're boosting a reverb. So it's almost like you've created whatever your signal is, it makes it, for your solo, that because a lot of times you already have your effect on, and then the boost takes that. This is combined. So when you do this, it throws it in such a way. Yeah.
We haven't talked about it in a while, but we have neglected our expression pedals.
Oh, yeah.
The plug that goes in. I think what would be really cool is if you plug in an expression pedal, you dial in that frog boost of the shimmer. As you're playing, it's like you can wah shimmer in and out like a wah-wah, but it's shimmer, and it's just coming in and out, and you'll have little sparkles on certain notes and not on other notes. I think that would be really cool. And then otherwise, it's like a velocity thing that as you hit it, when it's not plugged in, then that tells it where to throw the shimmer and boost it.
Oh, that's a good one.
You should be able to build that, Josh. That can't be that hard. In fact, of most of the pedals, that's probably one I would use on a regular basis of all the ones we pitched you.
And he would draw, the little...
Yeah, it'd be a little frog with the wand.
Yeah, with the wand. and
everybody
the side hump.
Yeah, and everybody in Loveland, Ohio would buy that pedal just to have it, So it's like
sell out right away.
You got an instant sellout right there.
The Frogman. Yeah.
That's it. Well, I think this has been one of my favorite ones, basically because it's like, almost back home for me. But also, we dug deep, man. We got all the way back to Babel. We got
Ernest
the frog.
Thelma. Yeah.
We got ancient Egypt. This is the quintessential episode. Like, if we do a QR code, this should be the one that it always points to.
Yep.
Should come to this episode.
Yep.
So anyway, folks, if you love what we're doing, we don't make a lot of money from this. So you could tell your friends, you can like and subscribe. You can share this on Reddit, because I don't like going on Reddit at all. The whole Reddit thing actually kind of freaks me out, and it's like, I don't get it. It doesn't make sense. So if you're a Reddit kind of person, or X, or any of that kind of stuff, I would love it if you would take these and pass them around for us, because we're definitely not going to do much of that.
Yeah.
But until next time, people, stay in the Citadel, because
night is coming.
The watchman replies, morning is coming, but night will soon return.